Anyone who lives near fault lines knows how dangerous earthquakes can be. It's terrifying to know that the ground below you is shaking and there's no place to go. More so, it's the feeling that that very specific place has very high chances of experiencing an earthquake soon. There are a couple of places that come to mind when we start talking about potential earthquakes. From Japan to California, the odds are already bare for all to see. It's a matter of time, according to scientists. These earthquakes will not only destroy property, but also lives. Before we get started, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell for more amazing content. Number 10. California, home of earthquakes. Residents in California know of and about earthquakes very well. In 2020 alone, there were several. One that measured 6.5 in magnitude and a couple that measured 5 and 6. Many others measured lower than that. That, as a phenomenon, is just a part of living in California. From time to time, there are some quakes, like the one in 1906 that was an 8.3 and took the lives of nearly 3,000 people, or the other one in 1980 that was 7.4 and caused millions of shillings worth of damage. Every time people talk about quakes in California, there's always talk of the big one. This is because scientists believe that some areas in California close to San Andreas are susceptible to quakes of an epic proportion. The fault lines in Cali are about 800 miles long and close to 10 miles deep. Where the fault is, two tectonic plates come together, constantly grinding against each other. Some parts of the fault creep at around 2 inches per year. Others have been locked in place for quite a long time. Scientists speculate that these areas could give way at a moment's notice. A sudden release of energy would be powerful to dwarf any earthquake that has come before it. Talking of damage, it would be like nothing we've ever seen before. The fault is near many populated areas and nothing has happened as yet, but the ones that have happened are nothing compared to what lies ahead in the future. Number 9. The Hayward Fault, California. Another fault line in California is the Hayward Fault. This is a crack in the Earth's crust. It's 62 miles long and is located in the San Francisco area. Even though we constantly hear of the San Andreas Fault, the Hayward Fault could be a repeat of the 1868 earthquake. The Hayward Fault is referred to by the US Geological Survey as a tectonic time bomb, and according to them, it's the most dangerous urban fault zone in the country. This has the potential to bring earthquakes into the country that could shake the US into pieces. On average, the Hayward experiences a magnitude of 6.8 or greater than that about every 140 to 170 years. The last major earthquake along the fault line was 1868, meaning that the Bay Area is due for another major earthquake soon. There would be a big difference between the 1868 earthquake and the one predicted to happen soon. Today, there are so many people living in the area, and with that, the risk becomes bigger. Many more cities and towns have been built, meaning the financial loss would be greater. Don't freak out yet, we're not sure when this is going to happen. But if by any chance that were to happen today, the loss would be bigger than that of any earthquake in American history. San Francisco, San Jose and Oakland, all these places within that area could be affected by damages that could tally up to $165 billion. Number 8. Indonesia. Anyone who knows the facts where earthquakes are concerned will tell you that Indonesia has experienced its fair share. The country has experienced one of the biggest earthquakes in history. This is an area that's incredibly active because there's a convergence of not 2 but 3 tectonic plates. Eurasian, Australian and Pacific plates. Around 130 miles off the western coast of the country lies the Sumatran fault line. Along this line is where most of the country's volcanoes can be found, as well as seismic activities. And in 2004, an incredible earthquake occurred where the Indo-Australian tectonic was slipping beneath the Eurasian plate. With a sudden jolt, the plate displaced a massive amount of water, sending a tsunami towards the coast. Once the tsunami reached the coast, it caused a massive amount of damage and took the lives of over 50,000 people. The earthquake that caused it is said to have produced the energy of 23,000 Hiroshima-sized atom bombs. Scientists and geologists have been even more concerned about the earthquake and fear that the earthquake may have increased the pressure on other parts of the Sumatran fault. This increases the likelihood that an even greater, stranger earthquake could put more lives at risk. Scientists predict that the big earthquake might hit the city of Padang, and with an expected intensity of 8.5 or even higher, it might not only hit Indonesia but also send another wall of water towards other countries. The best thing you can do if you stay near this region is to prepare and stay vigilant. If there's a warning, make sure you're on higher ground. Number 7. Canada. Just off the western coast of Canada, there's an area called the Cascadia Subduction Zone. It's a 600-mile-long fault line from the northern shores of California to British Columbia and sits around 100 miles off the coast. It's not known to be prone to earthquakes since there have only been 41 in the last 10,000 years. That said, there's a menacing title that this fault line has. It's known as a megathrust fault line and considered by many geologists as a ticking time bomb. In this area, the Pacific tectonic plate does not move much against the Juan de Fuca plate. That said, when it actually does move, it ends up scraping against the de Fuca plate. The energy generated is enough to thrust large sections upwards in very quick and sudden motions. Such thrusts have been cause of many devastating tsunamis in the past. Story here is also the same. California and many of the large cities would feel the effects. The most at-risk states would, however, be Alaska and Hawaii. There are waves that could reach over 80 feet high and would strike with incredible force, taking the lives of thousands and leaving even more homeless. The last earthquake took place in 1700 and it was estimated that it was a 9.0 type tsunami that went across the Pacific Ocean, damaging parts of the Japanese coast. Earthquakes of this size typically hit every few thousand years. There may be another one coming sometime soon. Number 6. Japan. Another country that's not new to a lot of intense seismic events is Japan. Geologically, it has worse luck than Indonesia. It's at the crossroads where 4 tectonic plates meet, creating multiple fault lines at once. Because of this, Japan is one of the most earthquake-prone areas on Earth, and many of them are considered major ones. In 1923, the Great Kanto earthquake struck near 2 populated cities, Tokyo and Yokohama, and took the lives of 130,000 people. In 1995, another earthquake struck in the Kobe region, but the worst earthquake in the country's history was in 2011, when a 9.1 quake struck just off the coast, sending a huge tsunami towards the shore and taking the lives of over 20,000 people, causing a meltdown of the Fukushima nuclear plant. This demonstrates the danger that the Japanese people live with daily. Scientists are concerned that these earthquakes are putting pressure on other parts of the tectonic plates that converge in one area, such that the slightest movement in one plate could cause enormous stress in another. So many earthquakes happening makes it add on more stress to other parts of the fault lines. Which ones? It's hard to pinpoint, since there are too many to make a guess. The best guess scientists can make is the Tokai-Suruga Bay regions, which are along Japan's Pacific coast. Scientists believe that magnitude 8 or higher earthquakes are due here, since the Philippine plate is inching its way underneath the Eurasian plate, forming a subduction zone, which is the riskiest area of all. The last rupture to happen here was in 1854, and before that, 1707. This means it's very possible, yet not 100% guaranteed, that another earthquake is possible. It's helpless walking around knowing an earthquake could occur where you are at any time. Also, you wouldn't be able to do anything. The only thing that can be done is to have enough elaborate detection mechanisms such that in the event of the inevitable, as many lives as possible can be saved. Number 4. Chile. Generally, earthquakes are scary. Believe it or not, there are different types of earthquakes. The most dangerous earthquake is known to be the megathrust earthquake. These are quakes that occur in a subduction zone when one of the Earth's tectonic plates is thrust under another. The 2 plates move constantly towards one another and become stuck. Eventually, the buildup of strain exceeds the friction between the 2 plates and a huge megathrust earthquake occurs. In the northern area of Chile, one of these subduction zones exists, and it has been known to cause catastrophic megathrust earthquakes. In 1960, the country experienced a megathrust earthquake that shook the country for nearly 10 minutes. The Valdivia earthquake triggered a tsunami with waves that were 38 feet tall. It decimated parts of the Chilean coast and even travelled across the Pacific Ocean, causing havoc in Japan and Hawaii. Most recently, there was a huge earthquake of 8.8 magnitude. It was the 6th largest earthquake in recorded history. It took the lives of 550 people. The financial loss, on the other hand, came to about $4 to $7 billion. Luckily, the area is sparsely populated. Larger earthquakes would have more disastrous effects. If earthquakes get to a magnitude of 9.2, it would not only cause tsunamis, but also trigger some volcanic activities in the area. This has been known to happen. This would be a perfect storm of disasters and have the potential of taking the lives of people in that country and far countries as well. Number 3. North Carolina and Virginia. The most tsunami-prone areas in the US are Washington, Oregon, and California. This is mostly because the fault line extends throughout all of these states. This makes them quite prone to huge earthquakes. Earthquakes are caused by the movement of the tectonic plates, and the thing is that there are fault lines both on the west coast and the east coast. Off the eastern coast of the US lies the continental shelf at the edge of our continental landmass. It extends beyond the entire eastern coast of the country from Florida to Maine. The section of the continental shelf off the coasts of North Carolina and Virginia is only a couple of hundred miles away from shore. Here, the continental landmass ends sharply, dropping off deep into the ocean, where there's also a huge risk of underwater landslides. These landslides can displace large amounts of water towards the North Carolina and Virginia coastlines. Scientists have studied the risk of tsunamis in this area. The wave generated resembles a storm surge that you'd see from a Category 3 or 4 hurricane. However, some researchers believe that large waves are possible from 30 to 50 feet tall. North Carolina banks would be at greater risk since they're prone to erosion. Some sections of islands or full islands may be wiped out completely. Number 2. Island of La Palma. When it comes to natural disasters, some are based on scientific facts and others on conjecture. Some say that a volcanic eruption on an island 3,500 miles away could push out a wall of water that could destroy much of the east coast of the US. Sounds far-fetched, yes, and according to research done by geologists, it is. However, it doesn't stop the theory from creeping back into the realm of public discussion each time tsunamis are mentioned. Tsunamis play out like this. Just off the African coast and the Canary Islands of Spain sits the island of La Palma. On that island is the Cumbervillages volcano, which has been known to be incredibly active and prone to large eruptions. One day there could be an eruption so massive that part of the volcano could fall into the ocean, displacing a huge amount of water and send a wave across the Atlantic. This would displace much of the water and send it across the eastern coast of the United States. When this happens, a wave would have grown hundreds of feet, wiping out cities and killing millions. Geologists say that it's a very unlikely event, but it doesn't make it impossible. This has happened before, around 100,000 or 200,000 years ago, it's estimated. This is based on the discovery of landslide deposits on the ocean floor. These are, however, not frequent events. The theory feels a little too far-fetched to give it so much attention, though. Number 1. Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Situated in the Caribbean Sea and off the coast of the Dominican Republic lies a small island of Puerto Rico. This area does not seem to be on the radar for people who discuss seismic activities and tsunamis. Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands are located on an active plate between the North American plate and the northeastern corner of the Caribbean plate, making the place prone to earthquakes. The region has a history of quakes, and in 1942, one with a magnitude of 7.5 rocked the island, along with an 8.1 and a 6.9 in 1946 and 1953, respectively. Also, we shouldn't forget the January 12, 2010 earthquake more recently in Haiti. Even though it's a little far from Puerto Rico, the risk remains the same. With nearly 3 million people living on the island and on surrounding islands, a sudden earthquake could trigger an underwater landslide, and a resulting tsunami would far surpass anything we've ever seen in the area. The impact could be severe. The Caribbean has many islands that are scattered throughout its expanse. Many of the islands are small. If a tsunami would occur, some of the islands could disappear. The death toll would be huge. Tsunamis occur in very many places. Fault lines and underrated trenches can be found in nearly every ocean. Even though they may not be active as of now, that status could change soon. Therefore, we shouldn't let our guard down, and the more ways we can detect them early, the more lives we could potentially save.